Not sure if the following story falls 100% under scary, but it's certainly interesting, creepy, and odd. The house my parents owned when I was born was built during the war years. I'd always heard that many of these homes were constructed to house war workers and their families. This is also how the other side of my family came to live nearby. My grandparents were involved in war production. My parents bought the house in the early 1960s and were its second owners. The original owners, who purchased the house brand new in the 1940s, were a childless couple. My parents said that before I was born, this couple would sometimes visit to see their old home. The house was small, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath on a lot big enough to expand. So, in the 1970s, my parents added a family room, dining room, and extra closet space. The addition was obvious because the original house had a raised foundation, while the extension was built on a concrete pad, creating a step down into the new area. The addition was built before or shortly after I was born. My parents only mentioned that it was done sometime in the 70s. This extension was always a subject of family lore. According to the stories, the workers my dad hired to lay the foundation dug up some strange items just as they were about to pour the concrete. My dad also had them add a patio off the extension, so they pretty much dug up our entire backyard, leveled it, and prepped it for the foundation and patio. As I mentioned, I wasn't around when this was happening, or I was too young to remember. However, there was always talk about the things that were unearthed during construction, like wood, bits of strange metal, pottery, and even jewelry. Fast forward to when I was in elementary school. As any boy would, I loved to dig in the backyard and play. This always made my mom extremely upset. I could do almost anything else back there, but digging was off limits. One time, while playing with my Hot Wheels, I wanted to make a dirt track for them. So I went to the side of the house where my mom couldn't see and started digging. I found small pottery pieces, glass beads, and what looked like a very old piece of wood. My older brother found me and told my mom. She got so angry that she made me throw everything away, cover up the dirt, and promise never to dig there again. It wasn't until the year we moved away from that house that I started paying closer attention to what might have been out there. For context, the addition always had a spooky feeling. As kids, none of us wanted to stay down there alone. Once, a cousin about a year older than me slept over. My mom put him to bed on one of those huge 1980s sofa beds in the addition. He didn't make it through the night. He ended up grabbing a blanket and sleeping on our floor. He said he heard strange noises. We all did. We saw weird shadows and sometimes heard scratching at the windows. Also, I never played in the backyard at night. I just didn't like being out there after dark. The year we moved away, I overheard my parents finally discussing the possibility that there might have been unmarked graves on that land that were never discovered when the tract of homes was built. Apparently, back in the 1800s, large plots of land in the area were owned by dairy farmers. Before the war, the land was just open space as the farmers eventually moved out of the area. Even before that, the area had a different name, which changed as cities were formed in the 1910s and 1920s. So, the home I was born into and lived in until middle school may have been on land with unmarked graves. This story occurred a few months ago. There are these 3 abandoned houses and 3 barns close to my house, which are going to be torn down soon. So my siblings and I thought, why not check them out? I had already explored them all with a buddy, but wanted to do it again with my siblings this time because, why not? We had only explored one of the houses previously because there was a small window we could crawl through into the basement and another hole in the wall we could crawl through to enter the house since all the doors were boarded up. There were 2 more houses we hadn't explored yet, one small and the other huge. After some research on the internet, it seemed like the larger house might have been leased to multiple people. mostly college students or younger families who couldn't afford to rent entire apartments. The last time I went with my friend, we brought a screwdriver with various attachments to unscrew the bolts and a hammer for the nails. When we arrived, the board was already torn off. Luckily, even though it wasn't when we first tried to go in the week before, when we didn't have the screwdrivers. Let's call this house the Red House since it's made of red brick. To describe the Red House, it's like two average two-story houses connected. It's that big. We took about an hour to explore it, mostly because we were looking around thoroughly. When my buddy and I explored it last time, it was pretty cool. Not too much graffiti and lots of stuff scattered on the ground. We found old, cheap purses, Pokemon and baseball cards, a bunch of broken keyboards, books, and old school supplies, plus a lot of other random things. There was even an old tanning bed that we think was from the late 80s. We also found the occasional drug paraphernalia and pills, usually in the corners of old bedrooms or in the bathrooms. This time, I wanted to experience it again with my siblings. It was night, and my mother was asleep, so we could actually get away with it. I dropped them off in my car and drove half a mile to a trailhead where I could park, so my car would be hidden. Then, I rode an electric scooter the half-mile back to where they were so we could go in. There was a gate we had to climb over since it had barbed wire, and I folded up the electric scooter and hid it in the tall grass. This road behind the gate led to the first house we had already been in, so we were just trying to reach the big one. From here, we had to walk pretty far through tall grass to get to the red house. As we approached it, we finally turned our flashlights on and entered the house. Last time, my friend and I were calling out to make sure nobody was inside, but this time it was night, and I didn't want to risk someone calling the cops if they heard yelling near the abandoned houses at 2 a.m. Regardless, it was a stupid decision. We made our way in and started looking around. It's important to note that this wasn't the front door. It was the back door, one of two back doors. The house is on a hill, so from the road, it looks like a one-story house, but on the other side, you can see it's 2 stories. This back door is in the very corner of the house, so you explore from one end to the other. As we walked through, I thought I heard light footsteps, but this is an older house. I just looked it up, and it was built in 1964. The sounds didn't seem any different from when my friend and I first explored it, and it was night, so quiet sounds were extra loud. As we reached the other end of the bottom floor, where the staircase was, and started heading up, I heard more footsteps. This time, I told my siblings we should leave. They didn't hear anything, but they also assumed we were the only ones there, so they weren't being very cautious or aware. When you go up the staircase, one side leads to the garage, which is very small for such a large house, probably because it's older. And the other side leads past a short hallway to the kitchen, family room, and a lounge area, I think you would call it. This whole area is super open, and it feels like a lot of empty space, but it only covers about half the upstairs. On the other side is a straight hallway with around 4 bedrooms and a bathroom. That's when I thought I saw someone moving from one bedroom across the hallway to another, from left to right, but my light didn't reach far since I was using my phone. I started angrily whispering to my siblings, who were already kind of close to the hallway leading to where I saw the person, trying not to yell but to get their attention urgently. They ignored me, which pissed me off, so I quickly walked across the open area to try and yank their arm, until we heard something drop. In my opinion, the person dropped it on purpose to let us know they were there. But after what happened next, I'm not sure. Immediately my siblings and I jumped. It sounded like a bookshelf was knocked over or something equally loud and heavy. We could even feel the ground vibrate as we were upstairs. It was now confirmed that someone was there. We turned around and started running to the staircase, which is pretty much in a straight line. The bottom floor sort of zigzags around until it leads to a hallway that goes straight to the other side of the house. As we made our way around the zigzag rooms and reached the corner with the hallway, we started hearing running upstairs, heading towards the staircase. We were already running, so we didn't slow down. We turned the final corner and made our way outside, where I ran in a straight direction and then to the left, trying to hide in the tall grass, which also had a direct line to the other side of the huge grassy area leading to the gate. I lay down, and when my siblings ran out behind me, I told them to get down as well. We were maybe 30 or so feet deep into the grass when I saw a dark figure run out of the house a few feet, stop, look around, and then run into the small house next to this one, which was only about 50 or so feet away. I thought that house was all boarded up still, but it looked like the figure ran to the side of the house, where I guess their entryway was. There was a large shed in the way, so I couldn't see exactly where they went, but I knew there was a barbed fence over there, so they would have to run behind us to follow, as there was maybe a 20-foot wide gap where there was no barbed fence, likely for vehicle access. I heard footsteps running around but couldn't see where they were. We started to army crawl across the grass, moving slowly to avoid making much noise. We crawled faster but then heard the footsteps stop, so either the person ran away or stopped, maybe watching us. I kept crawling on all fours since the grass was now tall enough to cover me, and I kept looking behind to see if I could spot their outline in the dark, but thankfully, I couldn't see them. We started hearing a cracking sound, like someone was breaking plywood boards, but I don't know why they would do that, so I'm not sure what it was. Then it sounded like they were frustrated, as we heard loud grunts. We just kept crawling. We were crawling for a good 5 minutes to get to the other side, even if we were far enough for them not to see us. It honestly felt like much longer, with every minute feeling like 10. We eventually reached the road leading to the gate, and at this point, we stopped outside the gate and waited for a few cars to pass before we crawled through. I had my siblings crawl under first, and I swear I heard running through the tall grass behind me. But as I made it under, got through, and started running, it didn't look like anyone was following us. Also, yes, I did get my scooter, which my brother had already unfolded, and was riding away, with me and my sister running behind. We didn't stop until we reached the trailhead off to the side of the main road, where we threw the scooter in the back, jumped inside, locked the doors, and drove off. We left peacefully, knowing that the person was definitely homeless and couldn't get in a car to follow us. They were also probably not on anything, as they were moving too quickly, though I'm not sure if it would have been better or worse for us if they had been, and we ended up having to fight back. We made it home safe and sound, and we didn't speak about it near our parents. My siblings kind of laughed about it more after the first week, but it still scared me, knowing how serious it was. I don't think they realize how dangerous it actually was. We survived though, and that's all that matters. I also never plan on going back. My auntie told me this story a few nights ago, and I just haven't been able to shake it off. Others need to hear about it. It was the night of the 4th of July, 2023. My auntie Jenna, her husband, Derek, and their 12-year-old son, David, were on their way home from Jenna's sister's house. It was around 12 a.m., and they were driving through the mountains, where the deeper you go, the darker the roads become, since there aren't many streetlights. As they were turning around a corner, a flash of something appeared in the road, something that Jenna had to slightly swerve to avoid hitting. It had only been illuminated by the car's headlights briefly, so it was difficult to make out exactly what it was. Startled, Jenna pulled over a little ahead. She mentioned how it looked like a person in the middle of the road and decided to see if it was, because it was strange for someone to be walking out at this time, in the middle of basically nowhere. There are mountain lions, bears, and coyotes everywhere, so it's very unsafe. Jenna has a big heart, and her first instinct is always to help anyone she believes is in need. She pulled out and made a U-turn to check. And already, whatever they had seen was very far from where they had seen it initially, like it had maybe sprinted away, but was now walking. Jenna pulled up, and they all finally made out what appeared to be a woman in a pink tracksuit walking aimlessly in the middle of the road. Jenna rolled down her window and asked if she was all right and where she was headed. Having caught the woman's attention, she turned and walked very quickly to the window, now in clear sight. She was very disheveled, her eyes darting around in a panic. "I'm just trying to get to the gas station. I just can't be around those men anymore. I can't. Too many," she muttered rapidly, not really making much sense. Jenna told her she was going in the opposite direction of the gas station and pointed in the direction it was in. Immediately, a potent stench filled the car, the stench of pure rot. Everyone agreed it smelled like rotting flesh. The lady kept insisting they let her in. "Just take me. Just give me a ride down to the street," her hands pawing at the door handle. Jenna had already decided this woman was not getting in the car. Her 12-year-old son was in the back, and that was a risk she wasn't willing to take. "There's a fire station right around the corner," Jenna informed the woman. It was very close and seemed to be a simple solution for this woman, who seemed distraught, lost, and smelled awful. The woman quickly denied going to the fire station, as if it was far from ever being a possibility. After insisting for a while to get in the car, she eventually gave up and walked away. Jenna felt deeply unsettled by the whole situation and decided to call the police to let them know there was a woman who might need help walking around this late at night. After looking up, the woman was already gone, nowhere to be seen. The call had been very brief, maybe around 2 minutes. Jenna drove up to see if she could find her again, and already the woman was very far from where she had just been, like she had run again. She had to have run fast to get so far away. Everyone in the car was on edge, with an eerie, bad feeling in their stomachs. Even though the woman didn't appear to be dangerous, the whole situation was just strange and unsettling. Jenna pulled out her phone to take a picture of the woman, and through the phone, she could clearly see her in the frame, so she took the picture. But when she looked at it, everyone in the car was frozen with confusion and fear. In the picture, it didn't look like a person. It was blurry, but you could clearly make out not 2 legs, but 4, and a vague outline of what looked like the body of a horse walking down the street. Not a woman. Immediately, Jenna decided she didn't want to be anywhere near this woman. Her son David began to cry, sensing the fear and tension from the adults. Jenna pulled out and drove away as quickly as possible. The drive back home was quiet and disturbed, with everyone uncertain about what had just happened. A week later, one of Jenna's previous co-workers informed her about a woman roaming the shopping center, matching the description of the woman in the road. The co-worker said the woman never entered their store, but after she passed the entrance, the entire building reeked of death and rot. The smell was horrible and overwhelming. That was the last time she was seen.